Nintendo GameCube has, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the best first-party game collections available for any console ever released. And today we are going through my entire first-party Nintendo collection for the GameCube.
Pick up! Video Game World! World Trips! Live Game Hunting!
And again, folks, and welcome back to part 2 of my entire GameCube collection in 2023, and this time we are deep focusing on the Nintendo first-party games. These are some of the best first-party games released for any console of all time, and this has some of the very best games and the best franchise that Nintendo has to offer, and I can't wait to deep dive into this small game collection. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, let's get into these games. But first of all, we have a new addition to my GameCube collection. This was in fact a gift from a viewer called Gareth, who found this game in his envelope right here in a charity shop for just 50p. And this goes to show you can still find absolute GameCube bangers in charity shops in 2023. So he gifted this to me. I'm eternally grateful because this completes a very important subset of my GameCube collection. This game is, of course, Resident Evil 2. Yes, Gareth found this game in a charity shop for 50p and gifted it to me, and it makes me so happy. This means I now have every single Resident Evil game released for the GameCube. So thank you, Gareth, so much for this one. But stick around to the end of this episode, as this is not the only new addition to my GameCube collection. At the end of this episode, I will be sharing with you an absolute holy grail GameCube item that I've added to my collection this week, but waited years to find. Lastly, just before we talk about the first-party Nintendo games, I want to talk about the budget range available for the GameCube. These were, of course, the Player's Choice games. These are essentially like PlayStation's Platinum games. They were cheaper releases of the big popular games. And I have no idea if these games had to sell a certain number of copies, but they were definitely cheaper, and I don't know, they look cheaper. With a lot of these value range, they just make you feel like you're kind of buying the cheaper option, which of course you are, but I don't understand why they always have such ugly cases. But we do have Sonic Heroes here, as well as the French version of Prince of Persia. That's because the very first GameCube that I bought for my collection, I actually bought off Facebook Marketplace, and randomly it came with a lot of French released games, but it's kind of a cool little weird oddity to have in the collection. Let's get into these first-party Nintendo games then, and of course, whenever we talk about the GameCube, the first character that comes to mind is Mario, and the first game that comes to mind is Super Mario Sunshine. This is just such a departure still to this day for like Mario. This is kind of like, it felt to me like the early origins of Mario Odyssey on the Switch. This was so different to like even side-scrolling, or even to like Mario 64 that came before it. This was a real departure for the Mario series, and I'm really glad more people have got to experience this kind of odder entry into the Mario series, like especially with Super Mario 3D All-Stars being released on the Nintendo Switch. This is a great way to play this game, even though I think just because of like the haptic trigger support on the GameCube controller, this will always be played best on the GameCube. And if you don't have this in your GameCube collection, do you really have a GameCube collection? But of course, if we're talking about Nintendo GameCube and Mario games, we have to talk about Mario Kart Double Dash. Now, let me know in the comments down below. I think this is still arguably, it's definitely top 3 Mario Kart games of all time. I don't know if I would go with it being the best Mario Kart game of all time. I think that could be on the Switch now, but up until then, this is still today, this is an absolutely fantastic Mario Kart game. The double dash mechanic of having kind of 2 riders on every kart just changes it up so much. It has some of the best courses, the best power-ups. It's just definitely one of the best Mario Kart games ever, and a game, again, you need for your GameCube collection. The Nintendo GameCube, though, has even more Mario games. Games such as Mario Tennis. That's right, not content with just going karting, Mario also wanted to go and have a few rounds of tennis. This is just a fun little game, and it does make tennis a bit more interesting. I wouldn't say this is a must-have for your GameCube collection. It's definitely a fun departure, and I think there's a couple of other Mario sports games on the console. I have one more we're going to talk about in a minute. But yeah, these ones are definitely creeping up in value, so if you can get them for a decent price, I'd definitely recommend them pick it up. Even though with the kind of new Mario Tennis and other Mario sports games on the Switch. They are undoubtedly better, but I still think these are worthy of anyone's GameCube collection. Not content with stopping pollution, winning kart races, playing tennis, Mario's also been golfing. And again, this is another amazing kind of sports spin-off on the GameCube. It's a good one to pick up again. It is getting more expensive. I think when I picked this up, it was about £20. I think it's gone up to about the £30-35 mark. I wouldn't say it's a must-have, just because a lot of these sports games have been kind of improved upon on the Switch. Mario Golf on the Switch is a fantastic game, but it's definitely a cool one to have in the collection. Now, I know there is some other Mario sports games. I think there's Mario Striker Soccer and Baseball, which are both getting very, very expensive, and these are really cool ones to pick up. They're not ones I physically feel like I need in my GameCube collection, but ones I would like to add over time if the price is right. But without a doubt, one of my favourite Mario franchises on the Nintendo GameCube, as well as my wife's, these are some of my wife's favourite games of all time, are the Mario Party games. If you want to fall out with your friends, this is the quickest way to do it. If you think it gets competitive playing Mario Kart, wait until you play Mario Party. If you have never played a Mario Party game before, this is how you ruin friendships. If not, this is how you hate the AI of your GameCube. The computer-controlled characters in this game are more brutal than real life. That AI is scary. It takes no prisoners, and it will win at all costs. But that is kind of the thing. That is what makes Mario Party so much more fun. But here is the thing. The Mario Party franchise in general is getting expensive. But on the GameCube, these games are getting very, very expensive. That's all the Mario games I have in my GameCube collection. But there is a lot of spin-offs with Mario's relatives. Games such as this one, WarioWare Inc. And again, this is an absolutely incredible party game. And this is one I think is getting rarer and harder to find. It does kind of annoy my OCD because it's in this incredibly yellow case, and it does kind of ruin the aesthetic of the GameCube games on the shelf. But I will forgive it because this is, without a doubt, one of the best party games on the GameCube. It is guaranteed to break your controller, either out of frustration or just some of the games, like when you have to wiggle the analog stick, you wiggle it so intensely. But this is such a fun party game. A couple of friends with this, a couple of drinks if you must, and over 200 minigames. This is a must-have, I would say, if you're looking to play multiplayer on the GameCube. But it's not just Mario and his evil twin Wario that have games on the GameCube. Mario's lesser-loved brother Luigi also has his own game, which is such a departure from what we normally expect from the Mario Bros. Kind of series of games. It is Luigi's Mansion. This is such a different game. I really like how they've kind of brought like King Boo into this one. It's one I have not spent enough time with. It's one of those games I keep meaning to go back and play and just never get around to it. I think they're up to 4 games maybe in this franchise now, but I definitely want to go back and experience this one. It's one I've only played a small amount, and definitely roast me in the comments, make me play this game, as I know I need to go back and play this classic GameCube game. Finally, from Mario and his friends, we have, to this day, one of the greatest multiplayer games of all time. If your friendship is still intact after WarioWare and Mario Party, this will finish it off. This separates the gamers from the casual, unless they spam, and this is absolute god tier multiplayer gaming. People still play this game with the original hardware to this day. It is Super Smash Bros. Melee. A game which I suck so incredibly hard at, but that doesn't stop me. This is such a fun game, especially in local multiplayer. I still see people in local games cafes having competitions on this game. People still to this day use the GameCube controller in professional Smash Bros. Tournaments. This is an absolute must-have and is arguably still, to this day, the best game in the Smash Bros. Franchise. And if you have not played this game, play it. Add it to your GameCube collection. Love it. Just get your hands on Super Smash Bros. Melee. Next up, we have another franchise which was a real departure from what we normally expected of the franchise. On the NES and the SNES, this was a side-scrolling, explorative kind of game. But when Metroid Prime came out on the Nintendo GameCube, This was a fully 3D first-person shooter. Now, it was a major departure from what we expected of the series. This was still a much-loved game, and it plays so well using both the hardware and the controllers of the GameCube. This is a really fun game, and it goes to show that Nintendo can actually make a really good first-person shooter, something they're not really that famous for. And this is the first game in a trilogy. So we have Metroid Prime, which was followed up by Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, which was, it just built on the foundations of Metroid Prime and just made it even better. The crazy thing is, we had these two games on the GameCube. It wasn't until the Wii that we got the third game in this trilogy, and also the Metroid Prime trilogy box set for the Wii, which in a way is a better way to play these games. Now, these games then kind of died of death. We didn't see the Metroid franchise for absolute years afterwards when we saw the release of Metroid Dread. The GameCube, for the longest time, seems to be the graveyard for a lot of Nintendo franchises, such as the next game we're going to talk about. Wave Race 64 on the N64 was one of my favourite games released for that console. And it wasn't until I started collecting for the GameCube in the past 5 or 6 years that game actually had a successor in Wave Race Blue Storm. At a time when the GameCube first came out, I didn't even know this game existed, and I think to this day it's not a game that a lot of people talk about, which is a shame, as this is an absolutely fantastic jet ski game, and more than that, it's a fantastic racing game, and the water effects in this game are absolutely sublime. But sadly, this is a franchise that Nintendo just let die. This would have been incredible on the Wii. It would be amazing to have multiplayer online for what this is, a great multiplayer game. Imagine playing this online on your Nintendo Switch. And sadly, this isn't the only franchise that died on the GameCube. This next game for the GameCube is very much the same story as the Wave Race game. I never knew at the time of release this game even existed. It was only when I started collecting years later that I discovered this game, which unfortunately as well is from a franchise which Nintendo again let die on the Nintendo GameCube. It is F-Zero GX. Now this is what you call a futuristic racing game. I don't think Wipeout can hold a candle to this game. This game is fast. It is manic. It has 20 races, 30 courses. It is chaos. It is absolutely fantastic. And again, it's another game which would have lent itself so well to the Nintendo Wii and would be amazing online with the Nintendo Switch. But for some reason, rather than getting a remake of this, or even better, a brand new F-Zero game, we have F-Zero 100, an online battle royale F-Zero game. I don't really know who wanted that, why Nintendo thought that's what we wanted. We want a brand new, fully HD, up-to-date, amazing F-Zero game. Please, Nintendo, make it happen. Let's just continue that theme though. Another franchise which was on the Nintendo 64, but then for some reason died on the GameCube, is the 1080 series with this game, 1080 Avalanche. And again, this was a franchise that was head and shoulders above the competition. 1080 Snowboard to me was always much better than Cool Borders, and it just seemed like Nintendo gave up with so many franchises on the GameCube. Like 1080 Avalanche is again an absolutely solid snowboarding game. It's absolutely fantastic, amazing snow, amazing avalanche kind of features in the game, a really fun multiplayer game, and another game which if Nintendo re-released today or again did a brand new entry in the franchise would just be an excuse to print money. I have no idea why the GameCube seemingly became the graveyard of so many good game franchises. Next up is a game franchise which I believe should have died on the GameCube, but stick with this. This is because this game had one more follow-up game on the Wii U, and I do not want to talk about that game. That game offends me with how bad it was. That game essentially was just a novelty game to kind of prove to people that the Wii U controller had a point, a reason to exist. And again, I think the game on the Wii U, which I will not talk about, absolutely killed this franchise, which was a shame because I only discovered this franchise on the Nintendo 64. It is a franchise which holds one of my favourite games of all time, Lilac Wars 64. it is the Star Fox games. We got 2 games on the GameCube, the first of which was a game no one was expecting, Star Fox Adventures. This was essentially a very soft Zelda-style game with dinosaurs, and it was like an action-adventure kind of RPG, coming from a game series which was essentially an on-rails space shooter, to then become an open-world adventure game was not really what anyone was expecting, and not really what anyone wanted. It was one of those games, I don't really understand how this came about. There's a lot of weird history to this game. If you look into it, I think it was made by different developers and then bought by Nintendo. It's a very strange story and a very strange game. One I wouldn't say I hate, but what I really wanted on the GameCube was a successor to Lilac Wars 64. And we did get that with Star Fox Assault. Again, much like F-Zero, much like 1080, much like Wave Race, this was a game I never knew existed on a GameCube until years afterwards. I don't know if this was just a theme of Nintendo just not telling long-time Nintendo fans these games existed, or whether I was just blinded to games being released on the GameCube. It wasn't until very, very recently, last year, that I added this game to my collection, and I wouldn't say it's a disappointment, but it's nowhere near the lofty levels of Lilac Wars on the N64, because to be honest, that could be, on the right day, my favourite game of all time. I could play that any day from start to completion and be satisfied. This one, it changed things up. It added more tank sections, some on-foot sections, which are not fantastic. But when this game is good, it is good. It just sadly doesn't quite meet the tier of greatness that is Lilac Wars 64. Thankfully, there were some game franchises that managed to survive the graveyard that became the GameCube. Franchises such as Pikmin, which came to life and actually continue to live after the GameCube. I think there are up to 4 games in this series now. I think it's been on the GameCube, the Wii, and now the Nintendo Switch. It is a game series which I haven't played too much. I knew I wanted to add it to the collection because, you know, it's a first-party Nintendo game, but I haven't played it too much, so let me know, should I be adding this one to my list of games to play very soon, or is it one you'd probably pass on and move on to one of the later games in the franchise? Now, you wouldn't really put these words together. First-party Nintendo hidden gem. But I think this game right here is a hidden gem. To my knowledge, this has never had a sequel, and it is an absolutely fantastic adult game on the GameCube. This is a game that deserves its high age rating. This is a game that essentially makes you feel like you are losing your mind. This is Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem, and this game messes with you. This game is essentially you're trying to keep sane, and this game does everything to kind of confuse you. It has, I don't want to spoil too much, but some of the ways this game messes with you is crazy. Like, it will make your TV turn on. It makes it look like the GameCube's reset itself. It makes the AV setting on your TV look like it's changed. The controls will invert. It has some incredible gameplay mechanics, and I can imagine if Nintendo decided to bring this, as well as all the other franchises back that it left on the GameCube, this one, with some of the features of the Nintendo Switch, would absolutely blow people's minds. But regardless, make sure you check this game out. It is unlike any other game you have played before, and is definitely a must-play on the GameCube. We cannot talk about my GameCube collection without talking about the Zelda games. And who would have thought a promotional item would be one of the most-have games on the Nintendo GameCube? This is the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition promotional disc. And this includes 4 games. It includes The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link, and even more importantly, this has a full copy of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. That is 4 of the greatest games of all time on one disc. And this was a pre-order bonus. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was a pre-order bonus. Of course, today you can go on eBay and buy this. You can even go into CEX and buy a game that is not for resale, for promotional use only. And I think what this came with was the pre-order of The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. An absolutely fantastic game, and it's an absolute must play on the GameCube. And even better, on the GameCube we got this limited edition including 2 game bonus discs. And it's the important thing, if you buy this game you want to make sure you get the limited edition, as it comes with an extra disc, and on that disc you get The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and the only way to play The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest. Regardless of this being one of the best Zelda games of all time, with one of the most interesting art styles of all time, to be able to play the greatest Zelda game of all time, Ocarina of Time, to be able to play the Master Quest, you just have to have this game in your collection. But of course we cannot talk about my GameCube collection without talking about one of the biggest franchises, not just on Nintendo consoles, but in gaming in general, the Pokemon games. And some of these have got ridiculously expensive. There are Pokemon games on this console I do not have in my collection, partially because some of them are a little bit stranger. Like we have the Pokemon box, I think it is, which does it have mini games? I'm not exactly sure what this one is, but it's incredibly expensive. And we also have the Pokemon channel, which I think is essentially a selection of mini games, but again is super duper expensive. But regardless of cost, I had to have this game in my collection, Pokemon Colosseum. It is the best way to be able to bring your Pokemon from your Game Boy Advance onto the GameCube and see them fight in glorious 3D. Now, one thing I would say, if you were looking to buy a copy of this game, it is getting more expensive, but it includes a memory card. And for me, I had to have a copy which included that memory card. It is getting harder to find a copy that's complete with the memory card. Yes, of course, you can buy one separately, but for me, it had to be the complete package. But even though this is a game which is getting more expensive, it is far and away from the most expensive Pokemon game and the most expensive game that I own on the GameCube. It is perhaps ironic that the most expensive game I own on the GameCube is in fact actually my wife's game. She picked this one up because she is a massive fan of the Pokemon franchise, and we got a good deal on this game. And this is the most expensive GameCube game I have in my collection, and it has a high price. But if you are a Pokemon fan, you want to get your hands on Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. The story mode in this game is absolutely sublime, and it's just a fantastic Pokemon game. And even though it's expensive now, I think in years to come this one's only going to get more and more expensive. And it's games like this that this is a game I want to play. There are some games like the Pokemon box, the Pokemon channel, that they do have a high price, but I don't necessarily want them in my collection. I'd like to have them, but games such as this one I'm willing to pay the extra money for, or should I say my wife was, because these are the kind of games we want to play and have in our collection. There we have it then, folks. That is my GameCube collection in 2023 in its entirety. Like I said at the start of the last episode, over 100 games, but it is a collection I'm always increasing. I'm always adding games to the collection, so please comment below any games that you think are missing from my collection, be them first party Nintendo games or otherwise. As I said, I'm always looking to build the collection. I would love to hear what games you think I need in my collection. But we have one more game to add to the collection this time. Hiding here in this CEX box is a game which has a very interesting story behind it. So this game actually came from my local CEX store here in Norwich. So you may be wondering, why is it in a cardboard box? That's because when I went to CEX in Norwich recently, I saw somebody trade this game in. I saw them take it up to the counter, and as soon as I saw them take it off for testing, I asked, could I please purchase this game? It is a game which never comes in stock on the CEX website. And they said the only way to buy this is to buy it online. So I set up a stock alert and I waited for my time to pounce. And as soon as this game was listed, I bought it online. I knew it was coming because I saw it in store and I knew this was in amazing condition. And this right here is a game that it's nigh on impossible to get. This is the kind of GameCube holy grail that when it comes up, you buy it. I have never seen this game out in the wild, and at the moment, there is no way to buy this game CIB that I can find here in the UK. I think I've built the tension quite nicely on this one. We're going to open this up. This game is a first-party Nintendo game, and this game is Mario Party 7, complete in the box with the microphone. This is up on CEX for £120, but it is now again out of stock. I bought the copy as soon as it came in stock. This is one of the hardest GameCube games to find complete in its cardboard box. And this thing is in incredible condition. Yes, it does have some box damage there, but other than that, this is a thing of absolute beauty. And these are the kind of GameCube games I'm chasing. The hard to find, the desirable, the weird and wonderful. I have never played this game, and this is a game I want to play. I said earlier in this episode, me and my wife love the Mario Party franchise, and we cannot wait to jump into this one. And this is in absolutely incredible condition. Like, inside it has the game inside. This is obviously complete with the manual, and just to find this game in 2023 is a challenge, but to find it complete in the cardboard box with the microphone still in the original packaging is an absolutely incredible find. And it's just games like this that keep me searching for GameCube games to add to my collection, and why I'm sure in years to come I'm still going to be chasing and still adding GameCube games to my collection. There we have it then, folks. That is my GameCube collection in 2023, and it's always growing. As you saw in this episode, I added 2 games to the collection. Resident Evil, which I've been after for absolutely years. A game that's easy enough to find, but a game I just haven't had time to add to the collection. And this right here, Mario Party 7. What could be now considered the absolute jewel in the crown of my GameCube collection. But let me know in the comments down below, what is your favourite piece from your GameCube collection? I hope you've enjoyed this series. If you have, comment below what console you'd like to see next in my complete collection videos of 2023. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, keep playing the game. See y'all soon.